As you may have seen from the announcement, gentlemen, the new Wild Hunt event is about to be released soon, and with it comes a new banner, the Miyo, Fuyu, and Satsuki Run banner. Now, should you pull on this banner? Well, there are 2 questions and 2 answers. Are you a casual player who only cares about waifu? No, but if they are your waifu, then yes. Are you a competitive player who wants to take Yesod, Hieronymus Urban, and Gebura content seriously and clear it in a more comfortable way? If so, then yes, these banners may be worth considering. However, it is also possible to clear Yesod using alternative methods. I am not saying that you must choose the alternative approach, but the decision is entirely up to you. Satsuki remains the best special DPS 40A Gebura, as no other student can single team clear the torment difficulty as effectively as she can. Regarding Fuyu, she was last seen being effective against Hieronymus, as her terrain suitability allows her to utilize cover more effectively on urban terrain compared to using S-Canna as the main defense debuffer, although S-Canna still remains the best defense debuffer for almost all raid content that requires one. She can tank some damage but cannot reliably survive Hieronymus's attacks on urban terrain without strong sustain support. Fuyu, being S-terrain suitability on urban is safer from Hieronymus's attacks. Miyo, on the other hand, is almost mandatory for comfortable Yesod Phase 2 runs. However, there are alternative students who can fulfill a similar role, namely Memori. Assuming everyone has her and her unique gear unlocked, Memori can actually perform the same or slightly less than Miyo. That said, her defense type is an issue. Memori can die instantly, so while the strategy works, it is far from the most comfortable approach. I have talked a lot about these two, but what exactly do they do? First, I apologize that I do not have these units, so no clips will be attached. Starting with Fuyu, she is a defense debuffer as mentioned earlier, but her other skills, aside from her X skill, are oddly focused on dealing damage rather than maintaining survivability. So the main question is, how is a supporter with multiple damage-oriented skills supposed to perform her intended role effectively? Honestly, I have no idea. What actually matters about Fuyu is her X skill and her enhanced skill plus, which defense debuff and increases debuff duration is genuinely useful. If I were to make a tier list of defense debuffers from tier 0 to tier 2, Fuyu would be tier 1, while tier 0 would belong to S-Canna. As for where Fuyu is used, many players agree that she is effective against Hieronymus on urban terrain. Her terrain suitability allows her to utilize cover effectively, which S-Canna cannot. Now moving on to Miyo, she has the ability to buff all allies by increasing their attack speed, and this buff is enhanced when she consumes all stacks gained from her sub-skill. Her basic skill also increases attack speed, but it only applies to herself. Her sub-skill increases her own attack and grants 1 stack, which is granted when she uses her X skill. On paper, she provides an AoE attack speed buff while her other skills are self-focused. This makes very little sense at first, as she is a supporter who boosts her own stats while dealing absolutely abysmal damage to enemies. However, there is a reason for this, and as you may already know, it is because she is designed for Yesod Phase 2. Yesod Phase 2 mechanics require at least 1 or 2 students who can apply buffs to both themselves and others. This is because your main damage dealers are not the ones dealing most of the damage. Instead, the majority of the damage comes from the support drone mechanic. These drones have extremely high attack, and their status are replicated from the students on the field. They will deal an additional 100% damage to the target affected by the concentrated fire debuff. As a result, Miyo's attack speed buff, combined with other buffers, significantly enhances the drone's damage output. However, keep in mind that support drones only receive buffs from X skills and basic skills. Enhanced skills and sub-skills do not affect them, at least according to what is written on the wiki. So again, in short, Miyo is good and comfy way for Yesod Phase 2. That said, Fuyu has only demonstrated clear usefulness in Hieronymus on urban terrain so far. She may see more use in the future in raids where S-Canna cannot safely operate. So, should you pull on this banner? Not really. Pulling can be detrimental to your account. Even though these students are designed to fight Yesod Phase 2 and Hieronymus on urban terrain, Memory or because Zusa can replace Miyo, even if it is not the most comfortable option, and S can remain superior in most trade even after Fuyu's release. Similarly, while Fuyu offers an edge alternative, you can still rely on S Shiroko instead. Although formation setup may be troublesome against Hieronymus, avoiding these banners is generally recommended unless you are pulling for very specific niche uses. That's about it. You should pull only if they are your waifu, whether you want to get touched by Miyo's Live 2D or get absolutely rizzed by Fuyu. The choice is yours. Overall, this is a skippable banner. And that should be all. As always, Godspeed.